Yeah, I don't have anything special planned for the meditation, but I will, as usual, guide you in my own way, which is not, I will say that my approach to guiding meditation, as my own approach to practicing meditation, is somewhat open and kind of oriented towards kind of finding your own way into a kind of mind state rather than uh, being giving you a very structured way of trying to concentrate. I've found that there, different methods are, they all have their own value, but in terms of a kind of ongoing practice, that's easier for me. It's easier to sustain a practice that doesn't sort of set me up with an expectation that if I do this, then I'm going to get that result. Because that kind of, well, you can understand why that can be a problem. And so I try to kind of approach it in a little bit more of this kind of open way of just kind of stepping into the present moment and just kind of seeing what happens and seeing if I can just kind of place myself in the present moment and kind of allow the clarity and calming to arise out of that stepping into it, rather again, as opposed to kind of trying to do something that will make my mind get quiet. That sometimes can work as well, but it also can kind of create a inner backlash, which can make it more kind of frustrating to meditate, where you're sort of trying to accomplish something and then it's not happening. And so that's just to sort of give you some idea, if that makes sense, about how I approach this. Um, so settling back and starting by just feeling yourself being here in whatever space you are in. Uh, just feeling your body, and you can close your eyes. That certainly tends to help us to feel ourselves. If you're not comfortable having your eyes closed, you can just let them be half open, just letting in the light, the literal light, that is. Uh, and and so just feeling yourself wherever you are, and wherever you are, both, physically, geographically, and but also, emotionally or energetically. When we sit down to meditate, it's not as though we step into a different mind or that there's some magic that happens. Whatever's been going on in the day or the week or in your life, that's going to arrive. It's going to be part of what happens. What happens over this 20 minutes. And so to just acknowledge that, rather than trying to sort of transcend it or get away from it, just to say, this is where I am right now. And that's okay. It might be pleasant, it might be unpleasant, it might be neither, it might be just neutral. So that just checking in with yourself. And then also just feeling how you're holding your body. With meditation, we do try to bring a sense of dignity so that we're really asserting our presence in the world. Here I am. And there's a way, too, in which the having kind of an open chest is a kind of fearless posture, a receptive posture. We're not sort of tightening or closing down, very open. So notice anywhere in your body that's not feeling open, that's feeling tight or closed. See if you can soften. You might take a deep breath or two if that feels natural, and use that as a softening as you exhale. So just feeling your body, and then also just being aware of and accepting of whatever sounds are in your environment right now. There's a tendency to think of noise as a distraction from meditation, but that's just an opinion or a view, and you can change that view by seeing sound as just another sense object, something else to be aware of. We can meditate on sound as easily as we can meditate on the breath. Even what we call noise can be a meditation object. Awareness of body, of sound, of mood and energy. And then you can bring the attention more closely to the breath. And here's where we define a concentration object. Something to just use as a grounding or a focus. So we want to feel the specific sensations of breath, not just a vague idea of breathing, but the sensations either at the nostrils or the belly. And here we feel the distinct difference between an in-breath and an out-breath, subtle as it may be. So here the idea isn't that we try to shut out everything and just feel the breath, but rather there's a sense that the breath is maybe at the center or the foreground of our awareness, which can then still include body and sound and energy. So it's all held lightly. It's not a grasping or sort of forced effort. Being mindful is actually completely natural activity. So we want to kind of experience it like that. It's not some special practice or mystical approach to life. It's like being a kid and lying on the grass and watching the clouds pass by. Very simple. Of course, the habits of thinking will often intrude in this process. Our reaction to thoughts is one of the key aspects of developing a really enjoyable meditation practice. If we get frustrated or start to judge ourselves or get annoyed with our thoughts, we're just making it unpleasant. If we can just notice the thoughts, they may be very persistent. So we have to be equally persistent, but in a gentle way, in a spacious way. This is the art of practice that we have to develop. It takes time. But after a while, it becomes quite natural to us. And look for the edge when there's an edginess or kind of agitation behind the thoughts. Here is where we find the real hindrance to practice. And here we're challenged to pay attention, to turn to this agitation, to this inner discomfort that's associated with the thoughts, to turn to that and breathe with that, to feel that, to allow that. If we don't open to these feelings, these agitations, then they keep fueling the thoughts. And we get caught in a cycle of thinking and feeling and thinking. So again, this is why a spaciousness can bring more ease to our practice. We give space to the agitation. It's okay, we're not trying to shut it down, suppress it. But we're breathing with it, feeling it, and allowing it to move through. Like everything, it's impermanent. I don't know if I'll ever get completely used to just talking in my office here. Just not really my favorite. Just hearing my voice in this room. But so it goes. It is what it is, in the words of our fearless leader. It is a horror. But let us not stay focused in that way right now. So as I mentioned, we are still working on step 4. Going to take a while to get through step 4, as it generally does for those who have had to do such a thing. The section of the book, One Breath at a Time, that I'm working with is in step 4. It's called Buddhist Inventory, and it's kind of a flaw of the way they formatted the book, in a way that Buddhist Inventory kind of has really sub pieces, because after this section we have hindrance inventory and precept inventory, and then positive inventory, and but they're kind of all given, in terms of the sort of font, they're all given sort of equal weight. But anyway, just an editorial comment there. And I'll say, just to introduce this, just that when I first started to work the program and go to meetings and read the steps on the wall, hanging on the wall, and having had somewhat of a background in Buddhist meditation, inventory didn't seem like something Buddhist to me, in my sort of a pretty narrow view of what was Buddhist. I didn't really have a great understanding. I had done a lot of practice, but I was still drinking and using. So what do you want? But now I just find that it's a really useful concept for a variety of kind of ways of looking at ourselves, and not just in terms of recovery. Certainly, I think that doing a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves in the context of addiction is incredibly valuable, and one of the most important parts of working the program. But what I kind of want to take a sideline into is thinking about different Buddhist teachings that we can sort of look at through this lens of kind of inventory. So let me first read from the book. The highlighting is so light that I have parts I highlighted. I need to take off my glasses to see them. All right, so I'll read just a few passages. Inventory doesn't just happen in step 4, it permeates the steps. It also permeates the Buddhist path. In Buddhist meditation, we take different kinds of inventory. We might do an inventory in relation to the precepts, the hindrances, the Eightfold Path, or any of a number of other formats. This inventory can be quite personal, as when we look at how we harm others through actions or speech, or it can be impersonal, as when we see how thoughts of desire and aversion appear in the mind unbidden. Here we see how much of our mental activity is generic human output, nothing unique to us, just patterns of neural impulse. Then kind of talk about something Ajahn talked about sort of how the monastics handle this. I said the Buddha says that recognizing our mistakes and admitting them is how we develop our spiritual life. So the Buddha teaches that recognizing our transgressions as such and setting the intention to do better in the future is the way to deepen our spiritual life. So, it's a really important idea, and one of the things that I think draws people to Buddhism and sets it apart from a more theistic religion, that particularly the idea of sin, that in Buddhism, and indeed you see in the sutras the Buddha kind of calling somebody out on something they've done. But when they apologize and vow to do better, he kind of gives them a pass, and he says, that's very good. Then, and I'm, I don't know that we can say that just clears up all the karma, but it doesn't sort of leave us with this weight of being bad. There isn't this sense of being bad, and that's why I put it in terms of just being human. I think it's much more useful. I mean, just to understand, obviously, that we're all human, and what that the inevitability of making mistakes, and it is kind of sad when you're. I mean, I was raised Catholic, and had to start going to confession when I was like 7 years old, and this idea that I've got to confess my sins, which is, it's the idea of confession or speaking, that's kind of what we do in step 5. That's not what's bad, but it's this idea of sin and this mark on this soul that's really, can be unhealthy. And I think it's, I don't know that Jesus or anybody else ever actually taught that. I think it's one of those things that winds up being used in some ways just as a way of controlling people, and, but put that commentary aside. The spirit of Buddhist Inventory goes beyond any lists or set of rules to the core idea that in our hearts we know what is harmful. We could call Buddhism a natural religion. It allows us to discover for ourselves our innate moral nature. Harming others is painful. Stealing leaves us fearful and ashamed. Lying causes guilt and discomfort. Ultimately, we don't need precepts or commandments to know these things. So I think I'm going to stop there, because I actually want to step away from this type of inventory where we're talking about harmful actions, and instead talk about this, just something I've been reflecting on this week, and I mentioned it in that opening there. The idea of taking an inventory of our Buddhist practice, or so particularly an interesting one is to take kind of an inventory of your relationship to the Eightfold Path, and what this might mean. So there are 3 major elements to the Eightfold Path. Traditionally, there's the wisdom element, there's the sila, the behavioral or moral element, and then there's the mind training, the meditative element. So each of these things are things that we want to sort of consider how we're doing, basically. What needs to be developed more? What are we doing well with? What are we kind of overlooking? So I kind of want to go through that. I'm just checking the time. I can do this fairly quickly. Just in a. Obviously, I'm not going to go deeply into this, but so starting with the right view, which is traditionally said to be the first part of the Eightfold Path, and it's important to understand the Eightfold Path is not linear. It's something that's really, they're all interacting with each other. They're not separate, and they're not a step-by-step sort of building process. They're all just kind of completely relevant all the time. So right view, starting with right view, typical place to start in the Eightfold Path. So right view says, that you should see in the broadest sense, kind of see that how the world works, see how things work, and the particular focus is see the Four Noble Truths, see suffering, how it's caused, how it ends, and how to end it. So that's something, in order to do this, of course, you sort of have to study that and sort of understand what that means. But are you going through your life thinking that there shouldn't be suffering, or it's a good idea to accumulate things and that's what's going to make you happy, or there's no way to be happy, there's no way to end suffering, so those would all be wrong view, right? So to understand, okay, suffering is natural. The kind of suffering the Buddha is talking about is caused by us trying to cling to things, and that can be clinging to ego, it can be clinging to an object, can be clinging to a relationship. It can be clinging to an opinion. That's a very popular one that causes suffering. So, okay, so that's, you can kind of do an inventory on yourself. Am I living this way? Is this? Do I need to be more aware of this? And of course, the key to all of this is always mindfulness. We have to be mindful to see what we're doing. If I'm clinging or not clinging, I can only know if I'm paying attention. So that's one way of sort of doing an inventory of right view. The other aspect of right view that's emphasized is understanding cause and effect. So do I think that things are just happening randomly? It's just luck. Oh, everybody's out to get me. Or do I see that, oh, my actions, my thoughts, my words, all of these things are having impact in the world. And other people's thoughts, words, and actions are having impact. Karma is a very complex topic. The Buddha kind of warns against trying to figure it out. He just kind of emphasizes, be present now and try to do the right thing in this moment. That's kind of, and we try to understand what the right thing is by studying the precepts and studying the teachings. But it's easy to see how we can kind of step out of that and have wrong view about karma, right? Blaming others for our problems, or thinking that it's okay to behave in certain ways and then being angry when we get caught for it, or it doesn't work out. So again, this is just a way of kind of taking an inventory. Is this how I see the world? And obviously these are things that are not set. It's not like got right view, done. It's right view comes and goes, right? Because we all fall into these habits, these negative habits. We fall into the patterns of these human delusions. So the next part of the Eightfold Path is right intention. Another really key thing, and a great one to take inventory of. What do I use as the motivation and the guide to my behavior, to my actions? And there are three things that the Buddha says we should act on. There are three forms of right intention: acting on renunciation, acting on non-harming, and acting on, all right, let me put it differently. Acting on letting go, non-clinging, acting on loving kindness, acting on compassion. It's non-harming and non-ill will is the way it's put in the text, but those are kind of vague. So that's usually explained to be loving kindness and compassion. Now, here, as the Buddha often does, we're really being set up with a tremendous challenge. You're asking me not to act selfishly, ever, right? To never act out of anger, to always be aware, as in the sutta on the simile of the saw, he says, even if bandits are sawing off your limbs one by one with a two-handled saw, very specific, if a thought of ill will arises in your mind, you are not practicing the way I have taught. So they're sawing off your limbs and it's all good. Like, okay, the bar is outside the screen, it is way high. So, this is, I think, just to come back to kind of, and this is very applicable to how I was talking about meditation. Let's have these as models, guidelines, and understand that it's very going to be very difficult to live up to these principles. But what beautiful principles! I mean, these are the principles of nonviolence, right? This is the principle of the Kingian and Gandhian principle, right? I'm gonna challenge authority, and if they start to beat me up, you know what? I'm not gonna fight back. Wow, I mean that's you know it's held up, and I think we all see it as incredibly courageous and admirable, and a beautiful, beautiful way to live. So we have that. So again, to come back, so this is right intention. And so the question, then the inventory is just asking yourself, why am I doing this? What's my motivation here? And for most of the time, for most of us, there's not going to be this pure motivation. Oh, it's just love. You know, everything is just about giving. It's all about letting go. No, and that would be dishonest, and that would not be taking an honest inventory. But we can, the way I look at it is I try to, if I can't be, if I can't be perfect in my intention, I can at least try to put the positive intention to the foreground, and not sort of let the greedy intention or the angry intention be the motivator behind things. It might still be there, I'm still, when people ask me, they'll always say, when we're at the end of a retreat and asking people to give dana, the donations, and they always say, well, there's no set amount, you can't put a price on the teachings and all that. But then I've also said, just to make it simple for people, the suggested donation is $10,000. But if you can't give that amount, that's okay. Whatever, So, if that's really where I'm coming from, it's not skillful. It's not going to make me happy. It's not going to make you happy. But it would be great, if somebody decided to give 10,000 or more. As I say, that's just a suggested amount. No reason we have to limit ourselves. But, if you go into Dharma teaching to get rich, you've chosen the wrong intention and wrong view, too. Anyway, moving right along. I am going to run out of time, I can see, but that's fine. So then we move into the, what would be a more typical kind of inventory, the sila part of the Eightfold Path, the right speech, right action, right livelihood. Here, right speech, a great place to practice around. Such a challenge. I remember when I first set this as an intention, it was after a retreat in 1992, and it was the first time I'd seen the Metta Sutta. And in the beginning of the Metta Sutta, it says, this is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech. So that's just the first few lines of it. And when I got home, the teacher, this was Ruth Dennison, she had given us copies of the Metta Sutta, and I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading through the sutta, and the first instruction, I'm going to try to take that as like a daily practice. So the first instruction in there was to be straightforward and gentle in speech. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try to work with that. That's only 28 years ago, so I am still working on it. It immediately became apparent how difficult it was to do. But just by setting that intention, just by having the idea that I would start to watch my speech, start to notice when my speech and was particularly when it's not truthful, uh, and subtly not truthful, or like realizing that saying things like "I'm always depressed," which was one of my favorite things to say at one time, how how first of all it wasn't true, but more importantly, how it actually placed this negative thought, this belief in my mind, and that then had this negative repercussions. And so to start to see how, oh, my speech, it's not just about being right or wrong or good or bad. It's like my speech is, you know, tied into my thinking. And oddly enough, you think that what you say is an expression of your thoughts, but sometimes what you say actually feeds back into your thoughts. Because, you know, you say stuff and it's kind of like, yeah, you say it offhandedly, but then you heard it, you know, and you take that on. You start to have this belief. And I'll tell you something, believing that you're always depressed is depressing as hell. You know, it's a really depressing thought. So it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? So this is where bringing mindfulness to speech can be so helpful. Just, you know, I've got you guys on I try to watch everybody when I'm speaking, you know, the gallery. It's just interesting to see your reactions sometimes. Like there was very little reaction to that last comment. I'm like, huh, all right, let's not get depressed now. Cheer up. You know, I'm sure many of you saw a comment. I didn't read the story, but that Michelle Obama was talking about having a low grade depression from, you know, the combination of the pandemic and the, you know, the disruption in the racial justice movement and you know, to have Michelle Obama, who seems like one of the more like determined, like courageous people, say like, it's really getting to me, you know, that I thought that was a very, you know, it was just like a very strong statement and very, it meant a lot, I think, and I, knowing her as I do, you know, my close personal friend, I, you know, as we do, you know, she didn't say that just, it didn't just come out. It was like she realized that there was going to be a value in her saying that, and you know, and I talked to someone today who was like, yeah, like I heard that from her, and like it's really, I get that, and I think it helps us all to have that. I mean, this now I'm really digressing, but you forgive me. I think it really helps us all to have that from somebody we respect, someone that have that honesty, and that what to me is just a reality check. You know, you can sort of forget, like this stuff. Our situation is really, really bad. You know, it's. I mean, I don't want to remind you and get you depressed about how bad it is, but what I mean is that if we're feeling bad, it's natural. And again, you know, this is, I know this is the kind of sort of one of my themes. I guess maybe I need to find a new one, but when we feel like there's something specially wrong with us, oh, why do I feel so bad? You know, that to me doubles the pain. Whereas as if I'm like, oh, of course I feel like crap. Of course I'm, you know, no wonder. You know, okay, now what am I going to do, right? And I'm not going to stop there and just wallow in it, but to recognize that we're in this shared experience. And, you know, the Buddha talks about dukkha and suffering being this universal experience. We're having this like dukkha, you know, extra dukkha universal experience. Because ordinarily it's like people, oh, somebody's sick and somebody else has problems with their job and their relationship. You know, different people are having different problems. The whole world, and especially our whole country, is having the same problem right now. And that's rough. Anyway. That was right speech. Well, I've gotten through 3 of the Eightfold Path. See, this is why it's going to take a few days. I think we're going to stay on this because I think it's useful. The next one, I'll see if I can get through these 2 because I have a whole other list I want to work with. Uh, but to just the precepts, there's a whole section on the precepts that we're going to do, so I don't have to go through that too much. But just this is obviously what this moral part of the precept, searching and fearless moral inventory, is about morality, and obviously that's the traditional inventory in the 12 steps is to really look at your behavior in moral terms. I don't think we need to harp on that. Livelihood's an interesting one, not one that's so much a real-time inventory like intention might be or speech might be. But livelihood is a good one to look at in terms of its relationship to intention. What is my intention in my work? What am I trying to bring into the world? And is my work an expression of my values? So I'll leave it there, and maybe on Tuesday we'll go through the last 3 parts of the Eightfold Path, which are right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. But then I'm going to get into the 10 paramitas. That'll be fun. So we have a little bit of time. If anybody wants to share, speak, ask a question, yeah, please. Just unmute yourself and say hi.
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
All right. I was sorry to see the Yankees lost to the Rays tonight, but it happened.
But obviously, I have right view. I'm rooting for the right team.
Yes, that's right. You do have right view, right baseball view. Really, I'm going to offend half my audience, so I'm not going to.
Okay, no, it was just a joke.
Yeah, no.
But,
Yeah.
I'm
actually a Red Sox fan, so
Well, I'll pray for you.
I know I know, really, you're gonna. Can I find another teacher?
Yeah, no. So
Talk
all,
about like opinions and attachment. Boy, let go of that.
You absolutely
Had
correct.
someone say, I'm sorry, Sal, but I actually had someone come to one of my retreats. It was at Kripalu in Massachusetts, and she was wearing a Red Sox T-shirt and sitting right in front of me. And I was kidding with her afterwards. Said, "Oh, I'm a Yankee fan." She said, "Oh, if my husband knew that, he wouldn't be able to come. He wouldn't be able to meditate with you." I was like, "Really? Okay."
Anyway, I want to say thank you very much, and for your constant giving, and your views on these steps. They help me tremendously, and not only do they help me, but they spark something in me to want to dig and look deeper, And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about right view, about 1 minute. I hope I don't take too much time. But for me, right view had to begin with the right view inside. I had to have a right view of myself or who I was not, before I could understand right view outside of myself. So this is where the inventory took place, because the inventory, helped me to decide what was going to be useful to bring on to my spiritual journey and what was not going to be useful, what I had to discard of. And so I had to do this inventory. Before I could step out of myself, I have to step in. Thank you. I hope I can make it Tuesday. Tuesday's a rough one because the difference in time, I'm usually at work, but I really appreciate that you're doing this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think step 1 is it's the first inventory we do, right? And it's that same thing. It's that honesty. Yeah, thank you. Who else would like to speak? Well. How about somebody who hasn't spoken with this group? Some of you have been hanging out, tuning in, but we don't hear from you. And, it'd be nice to hear. It's like one of those AA meetings where nobody wants to speak. Okay, we'll just meditate.
Here again. Thank you so much. This has just been such an incredible opportunity for me to join this group. And one thing that I really took from, and even just being in this, interesting climate, is the right intention. And I really feel like being home and living in quarantine, everything is very intentional.
Mm.
And I really enjoy it, and I feel like it has really been something that I've always aspired for and have tried to do. But
Mm.
now, especially, it's like I can't go to the grocery store without having the intention of exactly what I'm doing, or
Mm.
even how I'm spending my time and energy, and even being on the screen at this hour of the night. I've been online all day for work, and now
Mm.
spending time with all of you, and just that they cultivate so much more gratitude for those granular moments.
Mm. Sweet. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, I mean, we certainly have to be careful, and being careful is forces you to be aware of what what your actions are and your intention around it. Well, I will point out that Angela has put in information about Dana, which are donations for me, as well as, oh yeah, we've got, and for those who don't know, many of the previous classes are uh, available on YouTube or just as audio downloads on my website. So you can find them on my website, links to that. I am co-teaching a class with Vimalasara on we're calling it the four great efforts of recovery. So it's about right effort, particularly and it's on, there's two more Monday, not these coming Monday and the following Monday. What else am I doing here? You're putting in all the things I'm doing. I'm getting worn out looking at it. The at-home retreat. I don't know how I'm going to survive that, but I guess September 2nd to the 7th for Southern Dharma, which I'm usually in North Carolina for that, which is really nice. I see we have someone on here from North Carolina, so hi. I love North Carolina, and you're going to love it even more. But will the Monday night class be available? Yeah, yes, they've been recording them, Julie. And they actually sent me a link to the recording, and I didn't put it up yet, but I will this weekend. I'm going to update things. So yeah, the Monday night classes are at 6:30, sort of a strange time, but I guess Vimalasara wanted to have it early enough for people on the East Coast. I don't know if that is early enough on the East Coast. Anyway, that's really fun. Vimalasara is really, if you haven't ever sat with her, she's a really terrific teacher. We have distinctly different styles, and I I like the way it blends together because one of the things about Dharma is that it's really important to keep balance, and anytime you kind of emphasize one thing, you're maybe not emphasizing another thing to balance it. And so when you have two teachers who kind of take somewhat different routes or emphases, you kind of get that nice balance. And she is, as I mentioned earlier, she's like a more systematic teacher than I am, and that can be nice too. I think she had led a really good meditation that was very structured. It was kind of very different from what I was talking about tonight. But as I say, it's really helpful to get those different approaches and different practices. So, oh, So Julie is saying, oh, you're joining Greg Pergament's recovery class Mondays. Oh, so his that's the Las Vegas class is online too. So that's Greg Pergament, who is best known as a Qigong teacher, but he is also, and I'm not sure where, what that link is, but here's his name. Greg is from Las Vegas, and he usually teaches some Qigong online too. He's also a recovering person. So, okay, well, Friday night, plenty of time to go out and party. Oh, darn, none of that. So, plenty of time to binge watch something. These joyful times. Very nice to see everyone. Thank you for hanging in, and keep meditating, keep doing it, keep practicing. Oh, this is the party. Thanks, Angela. Yeah, that's really sad. But anyway, we've had our share of parties, right? If you're on this call, like you partied, and it stopped being fun a long time ago. No, this is the party, and really it is. It certainly brings me great joy to be able to hang out and talk about the Dharma and practice together. So, thank you. The guitar is over there, in the corner. Thank you, James. All right, you guys. Blessings and stay safe. Wear a mask. Wear two masks. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay,
Thank
you're
you,
welcome.
Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. Peace.
Kevin.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.